The Liverpool Spotlight. The morning sun struggled to shine through the thick grey clouds hanging over the docks of Liverpool. Inside the bustling television studio, Arthur, a veteran producer, looked at the clock and let out a heavy sigh. The atmosphere was tense. The world of media was a brutal cycle of firing and hiring, and their ratings were dropping. Arthur had to admit that the show needed a miracle. He watched the interns rushing around, wondering if any of them had the courage to change the status quo. Clara, a young assistant with a sharp mind, approached Arthur with a stack of scripts. She noticed his stressed expression, but didn't want to discourage him further. "The guest for the 10 a.m. slot just canceled on short notice," she whispered. Arthur swore under his breath, his eyes darting around the room. He needed a new plan immediately. He looked at Clara, wondering if she could handle more responsibility than just carrying papers. "We need something that will go viral," Arthur muttered, more to himself than to her. "Something to make the supporters of the show cheer again." He turned to Clara. "Go find Julian, our TV host. Tell him he's going on his own for the first segment. No guest. Just him and his wit." Clara nodded, though she knew Julian could be difficult. He often acted like a king who required constant approval from his subjects. Clara found Julian in his dressing room, surrounded by a cloud of cigarette smoke that he wasn't supposed to have indoors. He was practicing his signature grin in the mirror, wearing silver spurs on his boots for no apparent reason. "Julian, the guest canceled," Clara said firmly. When he didn't answer immediately, she waited. In the industry they say, quote, they say, quote, the cat. But Clara's curiosity was her greatest strength. She watched him carefully, waiting for his reply. "A solo segment?" "How silly," Julian finally replied, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "But I suppose I am my own best muse." He stood up, the spurs on his boots jingling with every step. He looked at Clara and asked, "I'll need some props to keep the audience engaged, right?" Clara suggested a large, traditional English cake. She thought it would create a friendly, domestic impression, contrasting with Julian's usual cold persona. As the floor manager gave the 30-second cue, Clara watched from the wings. The studio lights were blindingly bright. Julian sat behind the desk, a giant Victoria sponge cake placed prominently in front of him. He was supposed to discuss the history of Liverpool bakeries, but Clara could see he was bored. He began to lop off huge chunks of the cake with a silver knife, throwing them toward the camera. "This cake is like my career," Julian shouted to the cameras. "Sweet, but falling apart." Crumbs flew everywhere, landing on his expensive suit and the polished floor. The live audience began to laugh, then to cheer. This wasn't the dignified segment Arthur had planned, but it was certainly entertaining. In the control room, Arthur watched the social media monitors. The clip was already being shared thousands of times. It was going viral. Clara ran onto the set during the commercial break to help clean up. She started to pour Julian a glass of water, but he waved her away. "Leave the crumbs," he whispered with a mischievous glint in his eye. "The people love the mess." Arthur's voice came through Clara's headset, demanding to know if she had authorized this. She realized she needed to use her discretion. "It's working, Arthur," she replied into her microphone. "Just trust the process." When the show ended, the studio was silent for a moment before the crew erupted into applause. Julian walked off the set, his ego thoroughly fed by the reaction. Arthur walked down from the control booth, his face unreadable. He approached Clara, who was bracing herself for a lecture. Instead, Arthur smiled. "I don't usually approve of food fights on morning television," he said, "but your support for Julian's madness saved us today." Arthur officially gave his approval for Clara to help produce the next week's 4 viral segment. He realized that sometimes you have to let go of the script and let the chaos take over. As they left the studio, the lights of Liverpool began to twinkle in the evening air. Clara knew that in this world of firing and hiring, she had finally found her place. She had the courage to take a risk, and it had paid off.